In their London home, Clara looked Tony in the eyes and asked, "Is there another woman in Africa?" He didn't hesitate. He denied ever seeing anyone else, not knowing the truth was already catching up with him. Welcome back, my amazing viewers. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. The message refused to disappear. Sandra sat still on her bed, her eyes fixed on her phone, her fingers cold despite the warm night. "Do you know who your husband really is?" Her heart pounded so loudly it felt like it might expose her. Who could send such a message? And why? Slowly, cautiously, she typed, "Who is this?" She stared at the screen, waiting, hoping. Minutes passed. No reply. Sandra dropped the phone beside her and leaned back against the wall. "Maybe it's nothing," she whispered. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't. The next morning, the house felt heavier than usual. Even the air seemed to carry tension. "Sandra, Mrs. Williams called from the living room." "Yes, Ma," she replied, adjusting her dress before stepping out. Mrs. Williams sat elegantly, sipping tea. Her eyes lifted slowly. "You didn't sleep well." It wasn't a question. Sandra forced a small smile. "I'm fine, Ma." She set the cup down. "You know," she said calmly. "A peaceful mind gives a peaceful face." Sandra's throat tightened. "Yes, Ma." Mrs. Williams leaned forward slightly. "So tell me, what is disturbing your mind?" Sandra froze. "And nothing, Ma." Their eyes locked. For a moment, Sandra felt exposed. Seen. Then Mrs. Williams leaned back again. "Good," she said, "because in this house, secrets have consequences." Sandra swallowed hard. Later that afternoon, Sandra's phone buzzed again. Her heart jumped. She quickly picked it up. "Be careful." Her brows furrowed. "Why?" The reply came almost immediately. "Because the people around you are not who they pretend to be." Sandra's fingers trembled. "What are you talking about?" There was a pause. Long. Heavy. Then, "Your husband is living another life." Sandra shook her head quickly. "No. That's not true." But her mind betrayed her. Tony's coldness. His distance. The strange call she overheard. Keep her that way. Her chest tightened painfully. Far away. Another storm brews. Across the ocean, a woman paced restlessly in a beautifully furnished living room. Her name was Clara. Tall, elegant, sharp-eyed, and deeply possessive. She picked up her phone and dialed quickly. Tony answered on the second ring. "Hey," he said. "Where are you?" Clara asked immediately. "At work." "You've been distant lately." "I've just been busy." She stopped pacing. "Tony, I hope there's no other woman." Silence. Brief, but noticeable. Her eyes narrowed. "You know I don't share," she said firmly. "You're overthinking," Tony replied. "Am I?" she snapped. "Because I can feel it when something is off." Tony sighed. "There's nothing going on." Clara held the phone tighter. "Because if I ever find out you're hiding something from me," she said slowly, her voice low but dangerous, "I will not take it lightly." Tony didn't respond immediately, and that silence said more than words ever could. Meanwhile, Sandra sat quietly, her thoughts tangled. Another message came in. "Do you want to know the truth?" Her heart raced. This was it. The moment. If she said yes, everything could change. If she said no, she would remain in the dark. Her fingers hovered over the screen. The door opened suddenly. Sandra quickly hid her phone under her wrapper. Mrs. Williams stepped in. Her eyes scanned the room slowly. "You seem very busy these days," she said. "No, Ma." She walked closer. Each step measured. "Careful. Be careful who you talk to," she added softly. "Not everyone wishes you well." Sandra forced a nod. "Yes, Ma." Mrs. Williams smiled faintly. But her eyes, they were watching. Always watching. That night, Sandra couldn't take it anymore. Her heart needed answers, even if the truth would hurt. She picked up her phone. The message still waited. Do you want to know the truth? She closed her eyes briefly. Then typed, yes. She pressed send. A few seconds later, a message came in. Then prepare yourself, because nothing is as it seems. Sandra's hands trembled. Her breath grew uneven, and for the first time since her marriage, fear settled deeply in her heart. Sandra's fingers trembled as she held her phone tightly. The message sat quietly on the screen. Then prepare yourself, because nothing is as it seems. Her heart pounded, fast, uneven. Fear wrapped around her chest like a tight rope. Then, her phone buzzed. A new message, a file, an image. Sandra hesitated. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she tapped it open. The image loaded, and in that single moment, Sandra's world shattered. Tony, her husband, standing in a beautifully decorated hall, dressed in a suit, smiling. But he wasn't alone. Beside him, a white woman, elegant, confident, dressed in a wedding gown. Her hand wrapped around Tony's arm, a ring clearly visible on her finger. They looked happy, complete, like a real couple. Sandra's body went cold, her lips parted, but no sound came out. No, she whispered. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. This is not possible. But the truth was staring at her. Clear, undeniable, painful. Another message came in. That is his wife. Sandra covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes instantly. No, I'm his wife, she said weakly. Her heart struggled to accept what her eyes had already seen. Another image appeared. This time, Tony and the woman in a home. Laughing, comfortable, intimate, like people who shared a life together. Not strangers, not a mistake, a reality. Everything began to make sense. His distance, his silence, his strange behavior, all come back when it's time. Keep her that way. Sandra gasped softly. That was the plan, she whispered. Tears rolled freely down her cheeks. I was never his wife. Her voice broke. I was just an option. But this pain was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, deep, heavy. The kind that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. Sandra sat there for a long time. Staring, thinking, breaking. Her phone buzzed again. Now you know. Sandra wiped her tears slowly. Her fingers steadied. Who are you? She typed. The reply came. Someone who doesn't want you to be destroyed. She swallowed hard. Why are you helping me? Pause. Then, because I was once like you. Sandra's heart skipped. Another message came in. He married you for children. Her chest tightened. His real life is abroad. You are just hidden. Tears filled her eyes again. But this time, something else was there. Not just pain, anger. Sandra slowly locked her phone. She sat quietly, thinking, processing. Then, she stood up, walked to the mirror, and stared at herself. For a long moment, her eyes were red, her face tired. But something had changed. Something new. Something stronger. No, she whispered. I will not be weak. Her voice grew firmer. If this is a game. She wiped the last tear from her face. Then I will play it. The next morning, Sandra walked into the living room. Calm, quiet, normal. Mrs. Williams looked at her, suspicious. You seem different, she said. Sandra smiled softly. Just thinking about my future, Ma. Mrs. Williams narrowed her eyes slightly. Good. That is what you should do. Sandra nodded. Yes, Ma. But inside, she was no longer the same girl. The call came late at night. It was one of those nights when silence felt louder than noise. Mrs. Williams sat alone in the dimly lit living room, a glass of water untouched beside her. The house was quiet, but her mind was not. Her phone rang. She didn't need to check. She already knew. My son, she said as she answered. On the other end, Tony exhaled heavily. Mum, are you alone? Mrs. Williams straightened slightly. Yes. What is it? There was a pause. A long one. The kind that carried weight. Mum, Tony began again, his voice lower now, more serious. It's been months. Mrs. Williams's eyes narrowed slightly. I know. She's not pregnant. The words dropped like a stone in still water. Mrs. Williams leaned back slowly. And, Tony's tone sharpened. And, that's all you have to say. What do you expect me to say? She replied calmly. These things take time. Tony let out a dry laugh. Time. Mum, I didn't bring her into that house for time. Mrs. Williams said nothing. I had a plan, he continued, his voice tightening. Everything was supposed to be simple. Then maybe the problem is not as simple as you thought, she replied coolly. Tony ran his hand through his hair on the other end. Mum, you don't understand the pressure I'm under here. Oh, I understand perfectly, she said. You think you're the only one with pressure. Tony lowered his voice. Clara is starting to ask questions. Mrs. Williams's expression darkened. What kind of questions? She says I'm distant. She says something feels off. And what did you tell her? That she's overthinking. Good. Tony exhaled again, frustrated. But she's not a fool, Mum. If she starts digging, she won't find anything. Mrs. Williams cut in sharply. Are you sure? Tony snapped. Because if she does, everything will fall apart. There was silence. Then, Mrs. Williams spoke slowly. That is why Sandra must do what she was brought there to do. Tony's jaw tightened. I didn't marry her for decoration, Tony said flatly. I know that. I didn't marry her for love. I know that too. I married her because I needed children. Mrs. Williams nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see her. And she will give you children. Tony's voice dropped. But when? Mrs. Williams leaned forward slightly. Have you considered that maybe the problem is not her? Tony went quiet. What are you trying to say? I'm saying, she replied carefully, that you should not be too quick to point fingers. Tony scoffed. Mum, there's nothing wrong with me. Men always say that. His voice hardened. Are you suggesting I'm the problem? I'm suggesting you should be wise. Tony stood up from wherever he was. This is not a joke. He snapped. Do you know what is at stake? Yes, she replied calmly. Your image, your inheritance, your control, my future, he added. And that is exactly why you must not panic. Tony laughed bitterly. Easy for you to say. You're not the one balancing two lives. Mrs. Williams's eyes sharpened. And whose idea was that? Tony said nothing. You wanted a perfect arrangement, Mrs. Williams continued. A wife UK to maintain your status, and a quiet wife at home to produce your heirs. Tony exhaled slowly. And you supported it. I supported your future. And now it's not working. It is too early to say that. Across the ocean, Tony sat comfortably, completely unaware. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. She is behaving well. He smirked slightly. Good. Keep her that way. He had no idea that the girl he thought was under control had just discovered everything. That night, Sandra picked up her phone again. Her eyes calm, her mind sharp. She typed a message to the unknown number. I'm ready. A reply came instantly. Ready for what? Sandra's lips curved slightly. For the first time, not in pain, but in quiet determination, to bring them down. After that night, nothing looked the same to Sandra anymore. The house was still beautiful. The walls still shone. The floors still sparkled. But now, she could see the truth behind everything. This was not a home. It was a cage, and she had been placed in it carefully. There was something Sandra had always found odd. Every time Tony called, it was never directly to her. Never. He always called his mother first. And after speaking for a while, Mrs. Williams would then hand the phone over. "At least greet your husband," she would say. At first, Sandra thought it was normal. Respect, culture, maybe even control. But now it made sense. Miles away, in his carefully arranged life, Tony had built a system. A safe pattern, a protective routine. Calling his mother first meant no mistakes, no surprises, no risk. Because somewhere in that same house overseas, Clara was always watching, always listening, always suspicious. She didn't trust easily, and Tony knew that, so every call had to look clean, normal, harmless. Sandra sat quietly on her bed one afternoon, staring at her phone. "So this is why," she whispered. "So she won't suspect." Her lips curved slightly, not in pain this time, but in understanding. "They thought I wouldn't figure it out." She shook her head slowly. "But now I have." The very next day, Tony called. Just like always, Sandra sat in the living room, pretending not to care. Mrs. Williams picked up. "Yes, my son," she said warmly. Sandra watched her carefully, listening, observing, studying. After a few minutes, Mrs. Williams turned. "Sandra, talk to your husband." She stretched the phone toward her. Sandra stood up slowly, took the phone, placed it to her ear. Tony's voice came through immediately. "Mum, hope you are fine." Before he could finish, Sandra shouted loudly, "Oh my son, how are you doing?" Silence. Heavy. Confused. Mrs. Williams's eyes widened instantly. Tony froze on the other end. "Mum," he said slowly. Sandra continued without hesitation. "Have you eaten? Are you taking care of yourself?" Mrs. Williams stood there, stunned, her face slowly tightening. Tony cleared his throat. "Sandra," he said, unsure. Sandra smiled slightly, but her voice remained playful. "Yes, my son, it's me." After the call ended, Mrs. Williams turned sharply. "What was that?" she demanded. Sandra blinked innocently. "What, Ma? Why were you speaking like that?" Sandra shrugged softly. "I was just greeting him, warmly." Mrs. Williams narrowed her eyes. "Don't try nonsense with me." "Yes, Ma," Sandra replied calmly. But inside, she smiled. The next time Tony called, Sandra did it again. "My son, how are you?" This time, Tony didn't react immediately, but he noticed. And Mrs. Williams, she watched closely. Again and again, Sandra repeated it. Every call, every time. It became her signature, her message, her silent weapon, a reminder, a mockery, a hidden truth only she understood. "You think I don't know," she thought one night. "You think I'm still that poor, foolish girl." She looked at herself in the mirror. "You made a mistake." Her eyes hardened slightly. "Because now, I'm learning." Sandra had not wasted the money Tony gave her during that first month. While everyone believed she was just sitting at home, obeying, waiting, she had started something quietly. Something powerful. Late at night, when the house was asleep, Sandra would sit with her phone, watching videos, learning, studying. She enrolled in online courses. Fashion design, pattern making, digital sketching, and something new, AI fashion creation. At first, it was difficult, confusing, overwhelming. But Sandra, she was determined. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Sandra improved, fast. Her hands became skilled. Her ideas became sharper. Her confidence, stronger. She began creating designs, posting them online quietly. At first, no one noticed. Then, one person liked. Then 5. Then 50. Soon, hundreds. Sandra created her own platform. A small online fashion teaching page. She didn't use her real identity. She remained hidden. safe. But her voice, her talent, began to shine. "Welcome everyone," she would say softly in her videos. "Today I will teach you how to create a simple but elegant design." People listened. People learned. People admired her. And for the first time since her marriage, Sandra felt alive again. Slowly, money started coming in. Small at first, then more. Students began paying for her lessons. Her designs were requested. Her name, though hidden, began to grow. Sandra smiled one night as she checked her earnings. "They think I'm nothing," she whispered. "But I'm becoming something." By day, she was quiet, obedient, careful, the perfect daughter-in-law. By night, she was powerful, creative, free, a rising force, living two lives, just like Tony. One evening, as Sandra was recording a new lesson, her door suddenly opened. She froze. Mrs. Williams stood there, watching, silent, suspicious. Her eyes moved slowly, from Sandra's phone, to her face. Then she spoke. "What exactly are you doing? What's your thoughts? Will Mrs. Williams discover Sandra's secret? What will happen if Tony finds out? Can Sandra keep playing this dangerous game? Or will everything come crashing down?" Stay tuned for the next episode. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. Bye bye.